Hey guys, it's Cathulfa here, and it is time for an update. And yes, it has been a long time, and yes, I've got all your messages asking me to make a new one. Just FYI, actually, on messages I get sent, first of all, if you ask me, how can I make more money, or can you tell me what to do, etc., etc., I'm never going to respond to you. The reason is because, I mean, frankly, come on, you just gotta play the game and find out for yourself. And that's all there is to be said. I'm not going to write a guide. I'm not going to send a detailed response to anybody that asks me a question like that, because it's just too much of my time. And I work like everybody else, so I don't have that kind of time when I am free to actually do things. I want to obviously play the game and play other games at the same time. Like right now, I'm playing Last Epoch, which is an amazing game if you like games like Diablo, Path of Exile. The other game I'm playing is Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, or whatever it's called. So yeah, the last thing I want to do is send paragraphs and paragraphs of text to someone. Also, frankly, like if you like the game, if you enjoy it, if you want to be better at it, then watch these videos, watch other videos, but also, explore. Go onto Reddit, the SimCompanies Reddit, go onto the forums, and just look up the guides in the library. If you don't know where the library is, right there, just click on what I call the burger sign, click on library. You've got all these amazing guys. And in fact, so one thing I only worked out 2 weeks ago, and it was from the library. If you go into Guide for Beginners, what I was looking for the tax rates again, because I was getting to a point where I was almost definitely going to pay tax, and I was trying to work out whether I should just pay the tax or whether I should still try to avoid it at a certain level. Like for example, today I've got 83 million to spend, and I need to get it down to 20 million. So I need to find something to buy worth 63 million. So that's going to be fun. I've got plenty of time to do that though, so hopefully I'll be able to just buy enough. But anyway, so going through the guides, I came across this one, leveling up. Now I'm not going to click it because it'll take me to the Sim Company's forums, but I learned something. And the thing that I learned, if I now go to the map, the thing I learned was that these buildings, there's more to them than meets the eye. Like most people will get these buildings because they provide a bonus. So you get 1% sales speed or 1% production bonus per level up to a maximum of level 3. So 3% per building on both sides. That alone is pretty decent. You have to pay 10 sim boosts per level per building, I think. So I think it's 30 sim boosts. No, that doesn't make sense. I think it's actually 40 sim boosts. So yeah, I think 40 sim boosts per week you have to spend on a level 3. I don't know if that's the same for level 2, level 1. But there'd be no point in having just a level 1 or a level 2. It's always, if you're going to take up a plot with it, then get up to level 3. Now, for me, it's inefficient to have these three buildings from the point of view of it giving me a bonus, because the difference it actually makes to a restaurant is actually quite minimal. And I'm not at a stage where I've got loads and loads of plots. I still have to get to 25 and then 30 to have the additional four plots that I can have. In fact, let me just show you. So there you go. Here I am at the level 20 mark. And if I get level 25, so one more level, then I will get an additional um, two plots to build restaurants on. And then if I get to 30, another two additional plots. And then that's where it caps out. Everything else then is the same, which is ultimately you have 18 plots to use. But yeah, so I want to get to this stage as quickly as possible. And it was happening so slowly, and it just seemed like I would have to wait like a year almost to get to level 30, if not even longer than that. In fact, probably longer than that, which is ridiculous. And that's because these buildings just don't generate much experience. And by the way, it doesn't matter what building you have, restaurant or a production building, whatever it is, it's still terrible experience. But then the way to get more experience, so the next level would be where you scrap buildings. So for example, if you were starting the game and you were going to build mines and you keep scrapping those mines in order to get a good mine, well, actually, that's a great way to earn experience because you get more experience from just building things. So building and scrapping is a great way to get experience. It's also then one of the achievements that you can unlock. So where is mine? There we go. Scrap 100 mines, quarries, or rigs. 51 out of 100 is what I'm on. You get a bonus 50k when you do that. I mean, the bonus is minor, let's be honest. But hey, you know what? Well, if you're going to get the achievements, then you can probably go up to, well, I don't know actually, 100, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let's say that it caps at 1,000. You probably have to scrap 1,000 to get all the way to the 100,000 bonus. And in the long term, it's nothing. But if what you're trying to do is get experience so you can open up more plots, well, actually, that's a good strategy. Um, But anyway, now we get to recreation buildings. Recreation buildings are actually the best way to level up. They provide you with the most experience. Now, I'm not going to go into details. Like I said, go into the library, go into the guide for beginners, and then scroll down to the bottom where it has a leveling up guide. Click on that, takes you to SimCompanies forum, and it explains what experience level you're getting, and recreation buildings are the best experience. So while these don't have the kind of effect I need them to have for my restaurants, it would be better if I had an additional 4 restaurants for these that would then be working their magic on. I'm having them anyway because it will get me to level 30 quicker, and therefore I will have those 4 additional plots quicker. So yeah, well worth looking into recreation buildings. Even if you don't need it, just have it because you can level up quicker. So there's that. Then obviously, so the obvious difference between this map and the last map in the last video is that I have loads of restaurants now. So you can also tell if you've got a keen eye that some of them have red roofs with lovely trees on top and these lovely patios, whereas this one hasn't. And that's because I'm still testing. I'm still in the middle of testing. The 7 of 8 of them are level 10s, and they are all generating a decent amount of revenue. Probably not the best, in fact, not probably, definitely not the best. Right now, I'm making about 160k per restaurant. That's 80k per session, and I don't think that's the best I can get. I also, what was I going to say? Oh, and then also, so the thing with restaurants that I absolutely hate, and so this is why I'd advise not going into restaurants, is that it is so volatile and sometimes seemingly for no reason. I can only imagine it's because lots of other players have then changed their price points, so they're getting more traffic and I'm therefore getting less traffic, even though my rating is the exact same, or in fact sometimes better. What I mean by that is sometimes I'll have a rating of, let's say, so this building here is a 6.4, right? Sometimes I'll be getting 100% attendance on 6.4 and then it'll go up to 6.6, but for some reason my attendance goes down to 92%, 93%, and every percent actually makes a huge difference at these kind of levels, where that 1% difference could wipe out like 10, 20 grand, and if that's doing it 2 cycles in a row, that's 40 grand of your profit gone, which, in the past with like a satellite building was my entire day's profit wiped out. So restaurants are a bit volatile, and that's the one bit I don't like about it. You cannot guarantee that I'm going to make 160k per day, and in fact 160k is the best I will make. So that's if everything goes according to plan. 160k is the best I will make in this normal economy right now. But in general, I would say that it's probably closer to about 110, 120k a restaurant that I make, which is great, but it's not the best. And then, so this is where we can move on to the final stage of this video that I wanted to discuss. In fact, yeah, no, let's just transition now. So I received a message before the end of the year, literally the last couple of days of the year, saying, I've noticed you're moving into restaurants. Could you do a retrospective on aerospace? Let us know what it's all about. Let us know your thoughts, your pros, your cons, etc. And so, yeah, let's start, shall we? So first of all, aerospace, endgame aerospace is not equal. Absolutely not. So, first of all, let's start with satellites, shall we? Satellites, making satellites was one of the worst profit margins you could possibly find. I was probably making about 50 to 60k a day on satellites, and it's not because I wasn't, getting my materials at a reduced rate through sales market or anything like that. It's just not that much money. For some reason, there's just not much profit in satellites, and I don't know why. I guess it just ultimately comes down to sales offices. If you get offered a certain price from a sales office for a satellite, well then, the kind of like the cost of the material goods to make those satellites and the eventual sale of the satellite is always going to be pinned towards, what someone is actually then going to turn a profit for if they're selling satellites to a sales office. So maybe that's why, but satellites weren't great money. But that is not to say that I would not do the same again, which is making satellites. And we'll get to that later, so watch out for that. The other thing that I did was I made suborbital rockets, and some days I had incredible amounts of profit, sometimes I didn't. To be honest with you, I think my experience with saws is a bit mixed. It is mixed, but the reason it was mixed is because my best days were obviously around an economy change where I had made a load of saws ready to sell, but I'd made them for a cheaper cost in maybe a recession, and then I went on to sell it to normal. And the way that prices fluctuate for saws because of how much material goods are needed to make saws, yeah, the fluctuation is huge. Like sometimes just the difference between one phase, economy phase, and another economy phase can give you like a 5 6k differential on the sale of a suborbital rocket. So if I am producing them, let's say at 105k each or something like that, and I could potentially sell it for 108k in a recession, well, if I just hold on to them, I could easily be earning 9 to 10k per suborbital rocket by just waiting for normal. So yeah, if you've got the funds, if you've got the equity, and you can move it around easily, which is the tough thing with this game, moving money around because of taxes. Um, but if you could do that, then I'd highly recommend building swords in recession, but not selling them in recession. Just keeping hold of them until normal. Potentially even boom, but yeah, definitely at least until normal. Especially if you get towards the end of the week and you don't know obviously what's going to happen with the economy change. Well, then just take the gamble, save a couple of days of swords, and then hopefully it goes up to normal and you make even more money on the swords that you still spent the same amount making. So there's that. And then finally, let's talk about hangers. Not finally, there's still a lot more for me to say, but just in general, hangers were without a doubt the best profit I could possibly find. Even though I'm making jumbo jets right now, usually it was luxury jets that made me more money, but I never thought about it in terms of what made me more money. I always thought about it in terms of what can I sell the easiest, because I wanted to make sure that it was as low effort as it could be. So sometimes I'd make jumbo jets if there was a lots of demand for it, and sometimes luxury jets if there was demand for it. But generally speaking, usually I'd make about 200k a day on a hangar. And so therefore these three hangars probably, if they were being run efficiently, so um, I'll mention that. No, actually, just mention it now. So if I was running it efficiently with the production bonus, but also with an executive team full of COOs, people with management skills, well then, yeah, this would be making me 200k a day pretty much right now, and therefore more than restaurants. That's not what I'm running though right now. I've got rid of that production bonus. It's all on sales bonus now for the restaurants, and I'm running a team of one COO and three CMOs again because CMOs are integral to restaurants. So everything has been pivoted towards restaurants. So these are not going to be as efficient as they could be. But yeah, when they were being run properly, 200k day average at least. In fact, let's just take a look at them right now. So 230k to manufacture this jumbo jet at quarter three, quality three. If I was to sell this quality 3 jumbo jet will get me 238 right now. So I'm making 8k profit on this. And then 17, so whatever that is. So 8 times 7 is, oh my God, I'm so bad at maths. I'm not bad at maths. I don't know why I'm saying that. 56, I think. Oh my God, have I got that right? I'm going to be so embarrassed if I got that wrong. Let's just say 56 and hope for the best. But 56k, and then so what's the other bit of math that I need to do? 8 times, yeah, so 136k. 136k a day is what I'm making on jumbo jets, but it would be more if I had all my COOs and everything, because what's attributed in this cost per unit is the fact that I'm paying a huge amount on admin, so the labor cost itself. And that is it the labor cost? Labor cost is saying 275, but anyway, anything that goes on top of what am I reading here right now? Why does it say labor cost 275 and unit cost 230? I'm confused. It's because I'm not able to think and talk at the same time. But anyway, let's just move on. So 136k is what I'm making per building. And so, compared to the restaurant, it's actually not that bad, is it? To be only earning me 30k less, but actually, once the restaurants have done their weird stuff, and actually I make less than the ideal 160k, it probably turns out to be 130k anyway. So these hangars, not being run efficiently, are making me the same amount of money as probably the restaurant. FYI, I'm not going to go into restaurants. I'm not going to touch the restaurant to show you what I'm doing because that's going to be a secret, and that's going to be a secret for as long as I play this game, because that's how restaurants work. Restaurants would not be as profitable or profitable at all potentially if everyone running a restaurant gave away their secrets. That's why you never see videos made on restaurants, and that's why you'll never see me make a video on restaurants either, frankly. There might be a couple of things I might discuss, but you won't get much out of me, so don't ask. But yeah, so there's hangers. Um, so here's my advice now. So I talked about why I would still have satellites, even though hangers make more money, substantially more money. And the reason is because you have to think about diversifying. If you have a map full of hangers, you are not going to be able to find the supplies for those goods. When I used to have 6 hangers, um, I was only ever to really get the full material list that I needed for 4 of those hangars. And so for the last 2 hangars, what I'd often run out on was jet engines and fuselage. Definitely fuselage. That was always the consistent problem. And the reason that it was a problem is because number one, they don't get made in very large quantities. So you're always going to have to need several supplies for just that one item alone. But then the second thing is that pretty much everyone that makes fuselages, they are in one of two camps. They're either producing fuselage because they need it themselves, and therefore they then, will sell you their surplus. Or the second camp is they make fuselage because eventually they intend to use it there themselves entirely. So basically, whether you're in one or the other, you end up making endgame aerospace. And that's the problem. I've had tons and tons of suppliers that have sold me these goods for days, maybe weeks, not very long, and then I get the message, by the way, I'm not going to be able to sell you fuses anymore because I'm now going to be using them myself. And it's like, fantastic, now I need to find another supplier. So again, the problems are that you need multiple people to really supply you, and eventually these suppliers disappear because they need it themselves. And that's the massive problem. With jet engines, I think that's also a problem, mostly because, not because of the same issues I've mentioned with fuselage, but because jet engines are probably not the most profitable thing you can make with a propulsion factory or whatever it's called. I reckon probably ion drives is, and then maybe one other thing. So jet engines aren't necessarily the most profitable thing to make, and so very few people make them as a result. And so it's hard to then get the suppliers for jet engines. Everything else is fine. Cockpits never had a problem. Basic interiors never had a problem. Wings every now and again I had a problem, but right now I've got someone who's very, very good at it, and yeah, so no problems there. So that's like that's why I would diversify, because satellites need a completely different set of material goods that don't really clash, if at all. I don't think they clash at all with jumbo jets or luxury or SEPs for that matter. I'm starting to wonder if they even need cockpits in satellites. I don't think they would. Why would a satellite need a cockpit? So no, it probably doesn't. Definitely doesn't need wings, doesn't need combustion or fuse, doesn't need gold bars, doesn't need jet engines. So yeah, I believe satellites are just on a completely different level. And so it's nice to be able to diversify just in terms of then being able to get the materials you need. What I would suggest, though, if you did want to run hangers and only hangers, is still, again, don't have too many hangers because you won't find the supplies for everything you need, but then start making the other products that you need. I don't know if it's very profitable because I've never done the maths on it, and I don't think it will be as profitable. But if you do want to be in hangers only, well, then I would suggest having some like electronic factories if that's what you require to build. I don't know, fuselage. I don't know what you need for what exactly anymore because I've kind of forgotten. But make your own fuselage, make your own wings, make your own cockpits, make whatever makes sense to make, and then buy whatever it makes sense to buy. And then that way just do hangers. But if you want to do end game and only end game, then I would suggest, a few hangars, a few buildings for satellites, a few buildings for saws. If you want to make saws, you have to have two buildings minimum, one to actually make the suborbital rocket and another to make the second stage suborbital rocket, because you won't find anyone really selling second stage suborbital rockets. And again, if they are, then it's only a matter of time until they start using their own product to make suborbital rockets themselves. So you won't have them for very long. That's my experience with the few people or even couple of people that I found ever selling second stages. Um, right then, and then so what else is there worth discussing? So look, if I was starting out in aerospace, one thing I would say is, so I did this horribly wrong. I did build one hangar at a time, but I eventually went to building six of these hangars at a level 11 as well, which made no sense. I don't know why I made them level 11. There was no thought process in doing that, but they just stopped at level 11 for some reason. And then I started actually manufacturing my goods. But what I would say is don't get involved in aerospace first of all until you've got the capital. And when I say capital, what I'm saying is, so just to be more specific, I would have at least 2 cycles worth of capital before I started making hangars. So what I mean by that, so first of all, build a hangar, right? And you got your level 1 hangar. Now, I would only have a level 1 hangar if I could run 2 cycles. And 2 cycles means, let's say you can only produce 4 jumbo jets with a level 1 hangar. So I would want enough money to buy the materials for jumbo jets, not just for that one 24-hour cycle, but for a second 24-hour cycle. That way I can continuously be making jumbo jets without being reliant on selling those jumbo jets for the next set of materials. So because what I see is, and what I can't understand is how people make jumbo jets. Maybe they make a few, and actually that few only incorporates about 8 hours of production time, and then they must have to come back to the game 8 hours later to run another 8 hour cycle, and then again another 8 hour cycle. But then also they can't afford the materials they need for the next cycle, until they've sold their jumbo jet. So it's reliant on them not only coming back every 8 hours to run the next cycle, but also on them consistently having to sell these jumbo jets. Whereas after a 24-hour cycle, I've got my production of jumbo jets to sell, but I've also already got the materials I need for the next cycle. So I start the next cycle, and now I've got a full 24 hours to sell the jumbo jets and buy the next cycle's worth of materials. And that is enough time for you to be able to get that done, right? If you're working like a regular person, 9 to 5, 9 to 6, that gives you enough time in the day, because you've got that full 24 hours, gives you enough time to do what you need to do. Obviously, the more cycles you can actually afford, then the easier the game is to play. And then, like I was saying with saws, like if you get to a point where you've built these saws during recession and you can hold them back and sell them during a normal phase, if the economy phase switches, then that's the most ideal way to actually make a profit from your saws. But you can only do that if you have the capital, because if you need to sell your end game in order to run the next cycle, that's obviously not efficient. So you wouldn't want to do that. So capital is key here. You need to have the money before you get into aerospace. And you don't have to then go all the way to level 11 or level 10, which would be a lot more normal. Go to level 5 if you have to, and keep ramping up as you have the suppliers and therefore the material goods for 2 cycles worth. And of course, you could run a 48-hour cycle as well, but having 6 level 11 hangers, that was never an option to consider, because like I said, I could only barely get 4 hangers working. The other 2 hangers, I'd have to buy additional material goods. I don't have those problems anymore now. Sometimes it gets a bit close on the fuselage or the jet engines, not even the jet engines anymore, just a bit close on the fuselage. But three is what I can definitely handle without any problem, and that's why I have only the 3 left right now. In terms of the future for these hangers, though, even though they make me a little bit more money than restaurants, they will be going eventually. If I'm going to be in restaurants, I need to go all in and just completely focus. And it wouldn't hurt to have a few more level 1 restaurants. And FYI, I don't know if I actually ended up saying this now, but the reason I have a level 1 hanger is because you still need to have restaurants to test with. Like if you make the assumption that you've got the perfect formula for restaurants, then you're absolutely wrong, and you've got the wrong mentality. I think it's always worth having at least one restaurant. I could be using Realm 2 for restaurants, but I've kind of just stopped playing Realm 2 altogether. It's just a dead server now. I'm paying off all my bonds. I'll be able to do that, I think, tomorrow now. Yeah, I've got 2 more bonds to buy back, and then that's it. I'm done with Realm 2. I should really use Realm 2 as a test server for restaurants, though. That way I can actually do this fully. In fact, I probably will do that now I've thought about it. Sometimes you just need to say something out loud for you to realize that it's actually a damn good idea. And as long as restaurants have the exact same system on Realm 2, which I believe they do, well, then you can probably learn everything you need to know in Realm 2 with a level 1 restaurant, and get everything to work fine. So that's what I'll do, and then I can make this a level 10 and not waste a plot on it, and then I'll make 3 more restaurants. But yeah, there we go. I think that's all that needs to be said in this video. Was there anything else? No, I don't think so. The last thing I would say is, if I'm going to say anything at all, is that look, if you're going to get into endgame aerospace, just make sure you have the time to do so, because it requires effort, and of course it requires effort. You don't have an exchange to be able to sell your goods on, so you've got to find the time of the day to be able to do that. And selling aerospace isn't always that easy. Sometimes you'll get the price right, but because you're not quick enough to the punch, someone else will get the order. Someone else will offer jumbo jets, let's say, at the exact same price as you do, and that offer will get accepted. Some people don't actually care about the price too much. They'll pay an extra 1k. They won't care too much about waiting for the best offer to come back, because they just want to get the job done quickly. They don't want to spend too much of their time trying to find someone to sell them the goods that they want. So you'll miss out just because you weren't the first person to place the order. But then more often than not, obviously it will come down to price. You'll miss out because someone just offered a slightly better price than you did. So, there are plenty of people out there buying these goods, but you got to be quick, and you've got to offer the best price, and therefore it can be time consuming to actually get things sold. So just bear in mind that, aerospace requires more effort than any other industry as far as I'm concerned. There are plenty of other things you could produce that you can then just sell on the market, and it may not be the most efficient in terms of profitability because you're paying that 3% tax. But hey, that's the difference between making money and, saving time. Whereas again, with Endgame Aerospace, you don't have that choice. You have to sell it to a player. And, it's not like you can have daily contracts either, because, people's requirements will differ day to day because sales offices will give them different orders. So you don't always know if you'll sell that person 100 satellites or whatever it might be every single couple of days. And that's the other thing, it's not every single couple of sorry, it's not every single day, it's every single couple of days, because the sales office generally takes 2 days to send a new contract through. So you don't get consistent business unless consistent business is every 2 days. That is consistent, just not the right consistency. So it requires a lot of effort, a lot of posting on the chat, etc. Lots of negotiating in some cases as well, people coming back and forth with the pricing that you're offering them. It just is what it is, but it takes a lot of time. And actually, then, so I think this is the way to end the video. It's an unpopular opinion, I get it, but there are lots of players that absolutely hate reselling, and I'm not one of them because I am a reseller. But also, like, the reality is that so many people depend on resellers, and just because you don't depend on a reseller doesn't mean that they're not necessary in the game. So put it this way, again, if I produce 3 buildings worth of jumbo jets and I don't have the time to sell them, well, I can sell them for a slightly cheaper price to a reseller, and a reseller will then shift them for me. And where I can sell to a reseller 100 units in one go, that reseller is probably going to divide it into multiple small contracts to get the price they're looking for, to turn the profit they want to turn. And I think that's a good deal. I'll take a little hit on the jumbo jet in order to get something done efficiently. If I don't have the time and it's going to potentially stop my production, I'm just not going to be able to do what I need to do to maximize my profit in another form. Well, then, finding a reseller to sell to is great. It's perfect. It's exactly what we need. And my level is not even that high of a level. Like, this was pretty mediocre in terms of the quantity that I'm making. But you look at the people that get certificates for producing the most satellites and jumbo jets and luxury jets, and you realize that resellers are critical because how do you make it happen if you are actually producing the thousands upon thousands of units? It doesn't take actually that much to be able to produce thousands upon thousands of single engine airplanes. Um, but to sell them would be an absolute nightmare, and so resellers have a purpose. And ultimately, it comes down to, that old saying. Well, I don't actually know what the old saying is, but the point being, look, what's more valuable to you? Is it your time or is it your money? And are you willing, if it's time, are you willing to let a little bit of that profit go in order to just make it a little bit easier on yourself to sell your goods? And I think 100% that's a good thing. But again, as a reseller, I'm biased, but that's the way I see it. I see it as a force for good. Also, for people that buy, it's not necessarily a bad thing either. There's a reason why people are able to get 100 satellites, 100 saws, 100, 200, 300, 400, whatever they need in one contract. And it's not coming from the producer. It's very unlikely to come from the producer. It's probably coming from a reseller, because a reseller is, you know, getting loads and loads of contracts together to be able to meet the larger contracts. Anyway, that's all that needs to be said about reselling. And that's all that needs to be said about this game. Or rather, my update for this game. The last thing I will show you is just where I am, generally speaking. So this is the page that I was supposed to show you. I always mix those two up. But yeah, rank 397. Rating has no meaning in this game, so just ignore it. And then, yeah, we need to get this work account up. In the short term, it'll go down as I get rid of the hangers. But in the long term, I'll probably have to work out a plan to get all these restaurants up to maybe to a point where I've got 20k workers and actually really maximizing the profit from restaurants. Because once you've got the formula, it is just about your restaurant level. And even if it isn't the best formula, but it's a formula that makes you money, again, then it just really comes down to having more restaurants. And because the wages aren't crazy when it comes to restaurants, you would therefore only need the one COO. Um, yeah, having more workers is actually not too bad on the effect it has on the admin cost. And then company value 466 million. It's not where I really wanted to be at this stage of the game. We're approaching that year mark now. We're only about 2 months away, and the fact that I'd only hit 500 million, basically, probably 500 million by the time I hit the year mark, is a little bit disappointing. It's nowhere near the kind of growth you need to be up there with the rest. So I don't know what I'm doing wrong, honestly. Because part of me kind of wants to take the easy way out and say that there must be some cheating going on for you to be any higher than this. But I also realize that actually some of this company value is just down to the fact that I've got no patents and I've got a huge amount of valuation allowance. In terms of valuation allowance, I may as well just end the video on this now. But in terms of valuation allowance, I've got 100 million right now. So basically, it's taken the value of all my goods, and I believe what it does is it cuts it by 20%. So, like for example, if you have a gold bar, and let's say that gold bar is worth $1,000, the game doesn't say, okay, this company is therefore worth $1,000. It says it cuts it by 20% and says this company is worth $800. And the reason it does that is because it has no way of knowing that you're going to sell that gold bar for the $1,000 market value. It's going to assume the worst case scenario, really worst case scenario, a 20% cut, and then it works out your value that way. So, I basically have 600 million worth of goods, but 100 million gets wiped out from the valuation allowance so that it's your conservative estimate of value. Um, but if I was to liquidate everything, I should be worth, if it's 100 million allowance, I should be worth 566 at least. And the other thing is that there are patents. The patent values are really OP because patents can be cheap to buy. If you wait until recession, especially a second or third week of recession, you can get some really cheap prices for research. And if you then get a really, really good CTO, Chief Technological Officer, then you'll be able to convert a high proportion of those research into patents. And basically, the amount of money that you spend on buying that research, as long as, again, it's cheap and your CTO is good, you make more company value that way, especially in aerospace. I worked out that aerospace is the best thing to do if you just want to artificially increase your company value. So if I was to do that right now and also then remove my valuation allowance, which would basically be the same thing because I'd be selling my goods in order to buy research, in order to then make patents. Um, if I did that, I think I'd probably be adding 200 mil to my company value. But given that's not the way that I plan to play this game, we'll never actually see that in reality. So, it's nice to think about that I might be worth 666. What a perfect number. But the reality is that we'll never see that reality because I just don't see a need for that to ever happen, for me to stop doing what I'm doing, where the valuation allowance isn't constantly going to be a burden, but also then where I would need to get patents because now I'm into restaurants. There definitely isn't a reason for patents. I mean, what am I going to do? Improve the rating of my restaurant that way? I mean, it's not a mechanic in the game, so I just don't need patents at all now. So yeah, it's all irrelevant. Not to mention, I obviously play this game in a way where capital is king for me. Okay, I think that's enough. That's a pretty in-depth update for everything that I wanted to talk about. A few tips there in terms of aerospace and getting involved, and a bit about these recreation buildings. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope it was informative. I hope you learnt something from it. Until next time, hopefully not in another 3 or 4 months. Until next time, I'll see you around.